Right, hello guys, back today with an update for some of the miniatures that I've been working on to showcase for you, like this Executioner tank, which by the way took quite a lot of work. My Ultramarines army has been ongoing since the 2nd edition, as you can see, and since I showcased that first video discussing about how I wanted the army to move forward, I've been doing an ongoing series where I show you the miniatures that I'm adding to the army and what's changing with it, like the Leviathan Dreadnought, the Hellblasters that we had going on, and of course my Knight, the Castigator Knight, which is part of the Lutin Necropolis narrative. Now here we have Marnius CALGAR Chapter Master, the Rubicon Chapter Master, since he's been switched over to PRIMARIS, and I decided that I wanted to position the arms in a different way. He often has the arms kind of up, and I just think it looks better because it's like that Tyranid illustration where he's kind of shooting out. Now the controversial thing that I added here was the muzzle flashes. This was discussed a lot on my community tab and on Twitter, and I was trying to find the right way to do this. I went through various iterations, and finally through discussion with you guys in the community, this is how he finally turned out. Also, you will note that I have added the 2nd edition banner for CALGAR, which was always something that I felt, PRIMARIS, they seem to have really reduced the amount of banners that they have, and I've always been about the banners because it's something since 2nd edition. So I actually printed this out myself on some good quality paper, and I think it really adds a lot to the model. And then next we have the PRIMARIS Executioner tank. Now this was something that really took me quite some time. For one, I've got the custom doors on the side, and of course you can see I've got a lot of weathering going on here on the tank. This took me a really long time to kind of decide how I wanted to approach it and the style I wanted to use. Also, coupled with the fact that it's just a bit of a pain in the ass to paint. There's a lot of angles and a lot of detail on this tank, whether it's the launchers on the top or all of the just kind of body elements and how much you want to shade in here. So I really wanted to try and do a good job on this, so I went all in. I've also tried to connect that kind of retro style that I've got going on with the army, because a lot of my stuff, like I said, comes from 2nd edition, so I want to introduce that kind of primary yellow as a sort of token gesture here. Now what I've done at the back here, you can see I added in that yellow stripe, but you can see how I've ripped and shredded away some of the paint, and the reason for that is because I wanted to weather it. Also with the plasma gun here, I wanted to go with that bright yellow, because again, that's a very 2nd edition style, having that bright yellow. Now I thought I would include here just how to do these plasma coils. So to begin with, we're starting with a base of 1000 Suns blue, and you can also see just around the coils I'm washing that edge and just glazing it very slightly. Then we're going to move on to Araman blue just to kind of build up, and you can see the lower section there. I've kind of got it as if it's kind of charging power. And then when we go to the brighter stuff, what we're going to be using is a Baharoth blue, and I've blended that in with a little bit of white as well. So then once you're building up the layers on top of that plasma coil, you want to be doing the glow around the edge, and the way that you're doing that is by making a glaze. A glaze is just a very weak, very thin, much thinner than you would use ordinarily to paint, but enough pigment so that you can see what I'm doing here on the top is washing from that top section toward the coil. Okay, so we're coming from the top section and we're bringing the brush toward the coil so that the pigment in the paint is ending up nearest to the edge, so that what you get is like a weak color transition, which is going to give you that glow effect. And that's what you do on power swords and other things like this, is you're basically building that wash. And then you can see at the end what I've done here is blended that, again using the same technique of that kind of glazing wash, but I've been using black as well to try and blend them together. So then we come to the main talking point for the vehicle, which is of course the weathering. Now why did I decide to weather this tank so hard? Well, I was actually really inspired by another producer, a Glorious Badger. You can find him on Twitter, I'll probably link that down below, and he did a fantastic Land Raider recently, and it really inspired me because he'd done this weathering you can see here like I've done on this light unit, where it's kind of really rusted right down, so you're getting to the core element then you've got the metal almost kind of breaking through. Now a part of me was thinking, well, would a Space Marine tank really rust like this? Is that realistic to think that the materials they use are actually going to rust at all? I was thinking probably not. It doesn't seem like they would probably do that. However, on the other side of things, I thought they could be on a planet where the atmospheric conditions were very severe and it was creating kind of oxidization of whatever material they're using, and just suspend your disbelief because it looks kind of cool. The next question, of course, is how did you do the rust technique? Well, it's mainly just using some browns and black. We're using Doomball brown, Mournfang brown, getting some black in there, mixing it in. Tiny touch of red as well, because of course you've got quite red. And then you've got the oxidized kind of dry color. And what that is actually pigments. You can get pigments, and I have some, but I was actually using the Green Stuff World liquid pigments, so they don't require fixer. You can just brush them on. And I was testing it here, worked out pretty well. Okay, next the Stormhawk Interceptor. Now this was another one which ended up being a bit of a saga, and it just kind of went on and on and on. And I think it's because I was trying to make decisions as I went along. I was trying to think, okay, how do I want the decals to be? How do I want the style to be? How weathered do I want it to be? And one big difference with my Interceptor you'll probably notice is, of course, the canopy, in that it's clear. Because a Stormhawk Interceptor usually has this kind of armoured canopy, because it's a fast-moving attack vehicle and it wants to be protected. However, if you look at something like the Storm Talon, they actually use a transparent canopy, which I think looks much better. So what I did was I tinted the glass, which ended up looking quite nice. But the weird thing is that with the Stormhawk Interceptor kit, you can see there's like a weird notch at the bottom of the canopy. And I'm assuming that if you buy the Storm Talon kit, they don't have that, which is a little bit irritating for me, but it is what it is, and I'm just kind of like, whatever. I still want to use the glass canopy because I think it looks much better, and maybe what I can do is actually just create like a small piece of plastic as like extra armor to go in that corner. Okay, so next up we have the Landspeeder Squadron. Now this is a really interesting one because it's comprised of two classic metal Landspeeders from 2nd edition, but also one of the newer iterations of Landspeeder. However, the updated Landspeeder was actually an eBay bargain that I snagged, and I basically just repainted it, but I didn't strip the paint, I literally just painted over it and it turned out great. So this one here, this is the classic, I think it's actually a Deathwing or Dark Angels Landspeeder, but back in the day when I was a kid, again, I didn't care, so I just painted it Ultramarines, and I've updated it somewhat. This one here, of course, is the newer Landspeeder with the big missile pods on the back there, and again, I heavily weathered this one to cover up for the fact that it was quite badly damaged and I got it for nothing on eBay. This final Landspeeder was basically an essential for me. It is the classic Ultramarines Landspeeder with the heavy flamer and multi-melter on the bottom, and I had to pick this one up because it just needed to be the third part of the squad, because I always wanted to own that one as a kid. But I think they turned out very, very nicely, and I'm happy I've got the squad now. So then we come to the Aggressors, and again, these were quite a challenge to paint because they have a lot of detail, a lot of angles going on with them, and especially with these ones that I've taken with the flame gauntlets, they have a lot of pipe work which adds a lot of different angles that you have to try and negotiate. And because I was trying to do these quickly, I actually assembled them all bar the heads and was like, okay, I'm just going to paint these, they'll be fine. Again, more for me, it ended up being a gigantic pain. So it's a good reminder and a good lesson that yes, it is irritating to have to paint stuff disassembled and then kind of assemble it after, but it saves you so many headaches because that way you can just more easily paint the stuff. You don't have to spend ages worrying about whether you're going to accidentally spread paint all around the model. Now, of course, the big talking point for these is the flames. Now, as you could see, I used sponge in order to do this. And again, it was just an experimental thing. I've never really tried to do this kind of style and approach, and I just thought it would be interesting to try. I know that permanent weapon effects are not something for everybody, and I definitely wouldn't do it on every model, but it was a fun experiment. Like I say, you never know until you try how something is going to be, and I actually think for these units, I think it looks really effective. And then lastly, we come to the classic out of production 2nd edition Tech Marine. Now this guy I have had for quite a long time. He hadn't been painted up, and I actually used some green stuff to create some extra cabling and so on for him, so he looked a little bit more Mechanicus, a little bit more Tech Marine-y. But there is another reason why I wanted to get this guy painted up, which is that he is going to be a permanent attachment for another vehicle that I am working on, and that is the Falchion Destroyer, the Relic heavy tank destroyer for the Space Marines. And this is actually a sort of 30k heresy model, but it is usable in 40k as a relic unit. Here is a small section of it. It is a astonishingly powerful tank. It is a massive, massive tank, and you'll be seeing that one very soon, along with this bad boy. Yes, I have got a Thunderhawk. I told you guys a long time back that this was going to be a centerpiece for the army because it's something I always wanted as a kid. I bought it actually months ago, and now I have been working on it, so it's very close to being painted up. I've also got some other unpainted oddities that I want to do, like these guys, which are these little penitents. They're basically lightning rods for psychic attacks. They're used by Inquisitors to basically protect themselves. I'm not sure they have the specific rules for them now, but it would look cool, and plus I think you could find a way to integrate it by using it as kind of like a bodyguard unit. I've also got this stuff that I've been stripping and working on. You can see a classic Space Marine Librarian and the Arbites as well. So that's all for this update, guys. I've still got tons of stuff to do for the army. Some of the classic stuff needs redoing. Of course, the new stuff like the Thunderhawk, the Falchion, it's all to come. And I've got some new videos coming out very soon as well for the lore. So I'll see you guys next time.